All right, today we are going to be making a recipe that I sort of made up about, maybe about 2 years ago. It was in 2020 or late 2019 I thought this up. But today we're going to be making a very involved mac and cheese. I actually call this one Mad Mac. This is based off of a particular kind of mac and cheese you get from a restaurant in Boise, Idaho called Mad Mac. That is probably my girlfriend's favorite place to eat on the planet. We both moved away from our hometowns, and it's not common that she gets to go back there and eat this, so I made this recipe to kind of like emulate it. It's pretty extravagant and pretty stereotypically American, I guess. There's a lot of cheese, a lot of dairy, a lot of meat. It's just over the top. It's usually not something that I'm actually that into. This one works out. I mean, it is just excessive, but it's well balanced and it tastes really good. You can only have one bowl of it though. If you try to have more than one bowl of it, you'll actually be sick. Then again, I'm like slightly lactose intolerant, so that usually doesn't fare very well for me. But I made up this recipe, so I actually have it written down right here. But basically what we're gonna be doing with actual quantities, we need about 2 to 3 cups of shredded cheese. What we've got right here is a sharp cheddar, an aged cheddar, and good old-fashioned American cheese. And this is Kraft Deluxe, not the actual Kraft singles. Kraft Deluxe has more actual cheddar in its components. So before I start off, I just want to talk about American cheese real quick. This gets a bad rap. I get it. It's kind of plasticky. It's fine. And a lot of people don't like it. But it really is, American cheese is just a very mild cheddar, right? Everyone just kind of has this idea of the plain old Kraft single, which does taste like plastic a little bit. Like, I get it. It's not something that I want to be the dominant taste in a sandwich or in a cheese-based dish. But it has one thing that other cheeses don't have, and that's sodium citrate. You ever wonder how you get that really like weirdly silky texture in, I don't know if you've had like Velveeta or any kind of like nacho cheese or super gooey grilled cheeses. Some of that processed cheese that almost has like the ribbons when you pick it up. And even if you reheat it, it stays super gooey. That's because of sodium citrate, which this has in abundance. These other cheeses don't have it. So what we're gonna do is add a little bit of this particular American cheese into our mac and cheese to maintain that silky smooth texture. It's not gonna be the dominant taste, but it's gonna add in a little bit of chemistry that'll help us out a whole lot. Oh, we also have some Parmesan over here. I don't add as much Parmesan just because this doesn't melt nearly as well. It can get kind of clumpy if you're not careful, but it does add a nice like bite, a peppery bite that these other ones don't. We're gonna get our sharpness from the sharp cheddar. This aged cheddar is more mild, but it has kind of this like delayed funkiness that's gonna really add a lot to it. But the basic premise of this, right, is we're gonna build our mac and cheese from scratch. It's gonna be made with a bechamel sauce, which is made by making a roux with butter and flour, and then we add in our milk, build our cheese sauce into that, add in our pasta. I'm using this, it's macaroni, but it's kind of like the longer noodles. So this brand was sort of just bought it by random, so don't really take that for any weight, any worth, but I really like the longer noodles here. I'm just gonna open it. Yeah, this is just gonna like kind of hold the cheese a little bit better than plain old elbows. I like this a little bit more. Now, this whole mac and cheese is then gonna be topped with sauteed ground beef, crispy bacon, and toasted breadcrumbs. So yeah, it gets wildly excessive. So first things we're gonna do is we're gonna get this bacon going, and we're gonna get these breadcrumbs going, and we're gonna, this is gonna take a long time, so we're gonna cut a lot through this whole process. But let's talk about how to properly do bacon. So with bacon, I'm gonna use this cast iron right here. It's basically cold right now, and I like to do bacon cold so we can render out the fat, because we want crispy bacon on top of this. I'm gonna go ahead and lay all this out. And this will allow for a lot of the bacon fat to render. You can even add a little bit of water if you want the bacon fat to really render, which is probably what I'm gonna do, because I just want crispy bacon. I just want basically bacon bits, right? This actually is a little too much fat over here. Get all this kind of spaced out. boring process. But I want to do this in a pan. I normally cook bacon in the oven just to get that perfect texture, right? But I want to do it in the pan because I want to fry off the ground beef in the bacon fat. Again, we're not holding punches here. We're not pulling any punches. We're not pretending like this is going to be, you know, a very dainty dish that... I'm not going to use that. That's too fatty. A dainty dish that's meant not to clog your arteries. This is not good for you. You eat this every day, you will die. So, you know, that's just sort of how that goes. But I don't make this very often. I haven't made this probably in a year, so I think it's time. It's worth it. Now, let's go ahead and get some breadcrumbs going too. So, breadcrumbs, I like to use Panko breadcrumbs for this. If I use plain old, you know, breadcrumbs you can buy in the store or whatever, they probably burn, and I want this kind of crunchy, this different texture. So we'll get like the salty crunch from the bacon, we'll get the crunchy crunch from this. That's a real term, right? Crunchy crunch. So, gonna get this going, melt a little bit of butter in there once it gets hot. We'll toast these breadcrumbs, and we're gonna need to keep them in constant motion, right? Because they will burn. You know, this is, you know, basically just dry bread. You apply heat to that, it wants to get crispy, and it will burn very easy. So we're gonna do that in constant motion, have that in reserve, and this bacon is gonna fry off. This is all gonna take quite a bit of time, so we will be back. Bacon will be done, Panko breadcrumbs are gonna be done, and we'll get started with this ground beef in 1, 2, 3. We're gonna try and clap, actually. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so back in action. We've got this bacon nice and crispy, not too much. We've got this nice and toasted. Took about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes. So now we're gonna go ahead and sear off this bacon in the residual bacon, or not bacon. We're gonna sear off this ground beef in the residual bacon fat. Because why not, right? Let's reuse a little bit of it. Whoop. Be very hard to hear me, but I don't want to set my fire alarms off. Really crowding the pan just a little bit, but that's all right. Okay, we're gonna let that cook off. All right, so one thing I like to do, you know, this is gonna have a lot of sodium in it. It's gonna be well seasoned, but I don't want the top layer to be this unseasoned thing of ground beef. That wouldn't be good at all. So we are gonna season a little bit. Not gonna over season it, because there is gonna be a lot of salt and everything else, right? So a little bit of pepper on top, and a few pinches of kosher salt. Maybe like half a teaspoon. Let that sear off for a second. All right, I think that's mostly steam at this point. We should be okay, not smoke. It was smoking from this a little bit. All right, so we're gonna get this seared off. Well, that's kind of getting a good crispy edge right there. Let's take a look at this. So you can see how well this crisped up, right? Just a little bit of butter in the pan. Now we have this nice browned topping to go on top of our mac and cheese. It's gonna be really, really, really good. This bacon's gonna get kind of crispy as it sits and cools. Let's see here, how we doing? How we doing? Getting a little bit of a good sear. I want a nice like sear ground beef on top, you know, a little bit of that like Maillard reaction going. You know, this is gonna be really decadent. I don't just want ooey gooey cheese that just tastes like all uniform and bland ground beef. You know, that's, you smother it in ketchup. You know, I don't want that. You can get that from just like, you know, any random pop-up shop. This is gonna, you know, this is a labor of love. I want to be really, really good. So, and also the restaurant it's from is really, really good, and I want to do it justice. Got a good sear going. Now I'm gonna chop this up. Let it brown all the way through. I'm not going to try and overcook it because this does end up baking in the oven at the very end, because everything needs to be done ahead of time. It'll be cold. We want everything to be up to temperature, right? So we got a little bit of seared action going on. Once you start actually like chopping it up and doing this, you're not really going to get a whole lot more searing unless we cook out all the fat, which isn't really what I'm going to do here. This isn't the ground beef isn't the star of the show. I just want it added on there in a layer. It'll be really good. There we go. That's all seared up. So, put this up real quick in a bowl. Fat and all, might as well. I need to get some metal bowls. I don't necessarily like using plastic for this. That's what I've got right now. Set that to the side right there. Okay, let me do a little bit of cleaning up and then we can get started on the bechamel. So we'll be back in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so back at it. Ground beef is done. Everything's kind of been cleaned off. Right now, I've got my Dutch oven right here and I am melting about a cup of butter. So let's go ahead. Let's find a whisk, because I'm gonna need to whisk this in a little bit. My whisks are all screwed up. I need to get better whisks. So, what are we doing? I don't like any of my whisks. They're all like a little torn up. You know what? You're probably the best looking one. So, what we wanna do, get this all melted down until it stops bubbling. What does that mean? That means that all of the water that is within butter has evaporated out and we're left only with the actual dairy components, right? So let that kind of do its thing. I am heating up 3 cups of milk right now. I don't want it to boil or even really simmer. I just need it to be warm because we're gonna build ourselves a bechamel sauce. And that requires adding in milk into a roux, a very hot roux. If you add in cold milk into a hot roux, you're gonna have a bad time. That shit's gonna curdle. So don't want that. Well, that melts. We're gonna add in equal parts of flour. So that's half a cup of butter, that's half a cup of flour. We're gonna add that in there, letting this kind of come up. We're gonna add it a little bit at a time too. Let's lower that temp, that's gonna get too much. And let that see, starting to bubble right there. Getting some good bubbling action. I want that water to evaporate. While that's doing that, check out this bacon, super crisp, just like very, very crisp stuff. Snap, well, that's actually not that crisp right there, but it's crisp enough. So, go ahead and make our own bacon bits here. There we go, hear that? Hear that crunch? That's what we want. We want the crunch. All right, all right. Now, if I had more space, I probably would have made even more bacon bits, but this combined with our breadcrumbs should suffice to add in that textural difference. All right, we absolutely do not want this to burn. We're now bubbling pretty good. I don't want it to get too hot, like I don't want this milk to get too hot. Up the temperature just a little bit. So roux are tricky. I had a friend try to make a dark roux the other day, and dark roux are very hard, and especially making any kind of like Cajun dish, right? That requires you to basically fry flour in butter like this for a very long time until it turns dark, but it's very, very easy for it to burn as well. We're not doing anything that complicated. The bechamel is a blonde sauce, right? So we need a blonde roux. All right. Do not want this to burn. Let's see here. Let's listen. Let's listen. Still getting some bubbles. Let that keep going for a little bit. This will help get a nice consistency in the sauce. We'll add this in a little bit at a time. I don't want to add all of it at once. Look at that. There's so much going on here. All right. Still foaming a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it's just because I'm getting air into it. So I'm not hearing a whole lot more. So let's start adding in a little bit of flour and whisking. So this is gonna look wild at first. It's gonna clump up real bad and not look at all like a good roux. But I think we'll be okay. It's been a while since I've done this, so if I fuck it up, I won't post the video. So, simple solutions. Right now we're looking okay, right? Okay, don't want that milk to scald whatsoever. All right, it'll start getting clumpy here in a bit. At least I think. Otherwise, you know, we just add more flour. There we go, it's starting to. We're starting to get the clumps. Ooh, we might actually need a little bit more flour. Actually, you know what? I think we just did it really right. I think we just added it in a good amount of time, because that's actually the consistency we need to be right there for a solid blonde roux. Probably, you know. If not, someone can comment. We kind of bypassed the... Oh, I'm skipping a step. That's why it looks weird to me. So it starts getting clumpy once we add in the milk. So right now we're actually doing this perfectly. That's what we want in a roux. We don't want it to get too dark. So we're gonna go ahead and add in this milk. This is gonna seem strange, but I'm gonna make sure it's at the temperature. It's warm. So that's all we really need, is it to be warm. So we'll kind of add in a little bit at a time. Let's go ahead and transport that back to this. Stir, 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 real quick, real quick, real quick. Pour this back in here for much easier placement. So now, got our warm milk to avoid curdling. We'll add a little bit at a time. See? Oh, look, it clumps it up real bad like that. We're gonna lower that temperature real good. A little bit at a time. We don't want to overload this stuff because it will stay clumpy. We can't have that. We want a nice silky bechamel. Look at that, it's just absorbing. Whoop, spilled a little bit of milk right there. That's gonna smell fun. We're getting there. Constant motion. We don't want this to burn. We don't want to develop any color or anything like that. That would be a bad time. Oh, wait, that burning might just be from the eye getting hit by milk right there. So you know what, let's do that. Look at that. Solve that. Let's pour it within here. Oh man. So you know you're making a good bechamel as if your forearm just really hurts, because this stuff really needs... Oh shit, see? We did not think right there. Still losing a little bit of milk right there. But this needs to be incredibly silky texture, which requires a good amount of whisking. We're gonna be here for a bit. That's all right. I'll cut out anything that's not super interesting. I want to be a little liquidy, so there we go. Probably was a little too much right there, but we should be okay. Go ahead and add the rest. All right. All right, look at that. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. All right, I'm gonna have my lovely assistant, if she doesn't mind, can wash out this pot, because I'm gonna use it for making the pasta. Thank you. All right, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Hang on, let's see if I can save this a little bit. Nope, that's just gonna be some scalded milk right there, but that eye's off. We'll clean that off camera. Okay, look at this. This is what I wanted in a bechamel. Excellent. Let's see if there's one way you can check to see if it works. You want to coat the back of the spoon, right? Oh yeah, that's perfect. Nice and coated right there. Tastes like milk. So, let's crank the heat up a little bit. But you don't want to do that at a high temperature, because it will scald and it will taste bad. This actually is the best bechamel I think I've ever made. Here, just in case I'm moving too fast, you can see that it's kind of ribboning off of there a little bit. Look at that. That's what we want. So one thing I do right here, I'm not going to salt this very much, but again, I like to season the individual components. So I'll add a little bit of salt and a good amount of pepper, because it's going to be a lot easier to season this at this stage than when I'm adding in all of the other components, right? So a little bit of salt. It's like 3 cups of stuff, so I'm not super concerned. If you want to maintain this nice white coloring, by the way, you can use white pepper. That's about a good amount of pasta water. Now, you always have to be stirring this. Unfortunately, you cannot allow this to stay in one spot for very long, because it will burn. So we're going to heavily salt this, because I always want your pasta to be seasoned. Thank you. Look, everybody, I have 3 arms. It's pointed down. You're not on camera. I'll blur your face. How about that?
I'm in pajamas. I'm upset about it.
I'm in pajamas too. I haven't gotten out of my pajamas all day, everyone. I am been lazy. I don't want to do shit. So I just got over being sick and I wanted to relax. So you know what? That's what we're gonna do. Okay, that's gonna come with the temperature. I'm not using a whole lot of water. There's some people who wanna like fill this up to the top to actually cook their pasta. That's not necessary. It doesn't need that much water. In fact, you don't even need to let this come to a boil to add pasta. It'll just cook. So we're gonna add in our pasta. We'll just keep an eye on it as it goes. It seems like a lot of noodles. Probably is too many noodles. But you know what? That's okay. We don't have to use them all. We can put some out for later. I like to have more than not enough, is basically my philosophy. So I've got like enough cheese, I've got enough pasta, because it's a lot easier just not to use something than it is to have to just go and make more of it. That's gonna be a lot harder. So while this cooks, we can add in our cheese. This is gonna have to be a little bit at a time as well. So we're gonna add in first our American a little bit at a time. Because again, we don't wanna overload this. We need to melt it just a bit at a time. Go ahead and crank that heat up to about right there. Make sure this melts. So this is gonna add in our sodium citrate, which will keep things nice and gooey. So if you were gonna reheat this the next day, if you didn't have this sodium citrate in there, you would actually need to probably add in something to loosen everything up, right? It actually wouldn't, it would be all clumpy. It wouldn't be nearly as good as day one. But if you ever had like really, I don't know, not bad mac and cheese, but like heavily processed mac and cheese, you can usually just reheat that and it will still kind of be creamy. And that's because of the sodium citrate found on a lot of processed cheese. But we're not putting enough in for it to be the dominant flavor. In fact, it's very mild cheddar, so I doubt you'll taste it. But it will add in what we need to have the creamiest mac and cheese you've ever seen. Some people do it with like an abundance of like cream cheese in there and all these other things and make casseroles of mac and cheese, and that works. That's another way of doing it, of maintaining that creaminess. But this, I think, is gonna be a lot easier. Okay, we've added in a little bit of this. You know, I've been talking about having enough material on hand, but watch me not have enough cheese. We'll be all right. And if this is too thick, we can always add just a little bit of milk, just a splash of milk to loosen it up. You really don't need a lot. And this will sneak up on you, actually. It will be, let's go ahead and add in some Parmesan. It will be a lot of cheese incorporating all at once. And you'll realize that you don't need to add a whole lot in there. I don't need to boil the spoon. Okay. Add that in. Go ahead and keep going. We don't want to overload it again. We don't want to have it not dissolve into the bechamel, but I think we're pretty safe. In fact, let's go ahead and add all of this. Now, I've made this before. It's why I'm not really tasting. I'm not ultra worried about the ratio, because I think I'm probably, one, might need to add in a little bit more milk. I've cranked the heat up a little bit to help it incorporate. But we'll taste it. If we need more cheese, we can shred more cheese. I've got more cheese. But I didn't want to shred every block of cheese I had, you know. Let's make sure this gets nice and creamy. But if this was too thick, let's say you just need a little bit more milk or needs to loosen up, like a tablespoon. If you add in a cup, it will just ruin the consistency. It's just a splash. You'll be shocked at how little moisture this needs to reach a new consistency. Look at that. That is gooey. So one issue is that I don't have the pasta going just yet, so I'm gonna have to keep stirring this for a long time. I might cut a huge chunk of this out because I don't want 8 minutes of me just stirring this, keeping everybody bored here. But let's go ahead and taste this cheese sauce, right? Let's see where we're at. Let's see if we're gonna need more cheese or more salt. Already love, look at this. Hang on, let's see if we can get the ribboning effect. Ooh. Look at that. I like it. I like it. I like it. Let's see. Oh shit, that's good. Okay, yeah. My God. That's actually damn near perfect. Holy shit. That aged cheddar, you can really taste that. We're getting like a sharpness. Yeah, the sharp cheddar, I'm definitely getting that. But the age is really coming through. Needs more pepper. I'm gonna be really careful with the salt. because I'm salting this. Bacon's salty. This has been salted as well. I don't want to overdo the salt. Pepper, on the other hand, I think will be okay. I had a friend of mine tell me actually to add mustard powder to my mac and cheese. I'm not going to do that with this. I want to use that on something less involved to test it. But I think that would be a cool addition. Adds like some funk, but we've already got that from our aged cheddar, so I'm not sure it's entirely necessary. Okay, gonna be bold and add just another pinch of salt in here. Want to be careful with that. You could even go add, you know, it's mac and cheese. You can do whatever you want with it. You could add garlic powder. You could add mustard powder. You could add onion powder if you really wanted to. I think it might be kind of weird, but it's worth trying out. It's fun to experiment with that, different cheese combinations. A friend of mine, same one who was talking about the mustard powder, we used to make pizza a lot together. That's perfect. Holy shit, that's good. Oh my God. Fuck, that's so good.
Did you get demonetized?
Nah, I never was monetized to begin with. Nobody watches this but my friends. And my mom, and my dad, and my sister, sometimes. Good bacon, too. So, what was I saying? So I have a buddy. We used to make pizza all the time when we were in college together. And he was the cheese master. He could make a cheese blend that would just blow your socks off. I need to make a pizza making video. I was really into it for a long time. I mean, I have an entire recipe book just of dough recipes and different ways to make marinara sauce. But this guy would make the best cheese blend of like your basic components of like, you know, you got like mozzarellas, you get parmesans, you got reggianos, you got, well, parmesan and reggiano is the same thing. But you have a lot of different cheese blends. And it would really, really work and would keep things like a good consistency. So good. But we really got into making Detroit style pizzas, which is almost similar to a deep dish pizza in a way, but you've got a very large pan, like a cast iron pan with a bread, your dough in there, a layer of cheese, and you'd have to do like a Wisconsin brick cheese or something equivalent, which is like with super melty, gooey cheddar thing going on, close to provolone, really, not a mozzarella. It was very hard to find, and he would make, it was very hard to find for us, especially because we didn't live anywhere near Wisconsin, and he would make an equivalent and actually made his own processed cheese at one point, and he used it in this kind of stuff, and let me tell you, it was to die for. We did such a good job on that. I love Detroit-style pizzas. Hard to find a place that does them right. I think you can get them at Jet's Pizza if you want delivery, but it's not the same. Not the same. This has got to keep going. All right, so once these noodles get done, we're gonna do a thing where I don't actually drain these. I take them out like this, where they still have some pasta water around them, and put them in there, and the pasta water and the starch in the water will help bind the cheese onto the individual noodle. It adds for a really, really amazing texture, which is why I'm pretty cool with this being a little thicker, a little on the thicker side, because it will loosen up, and we're gonna bake it too, which will help a lot as well. All right, I need a second opinion. Can I get a second opinion on the cheese? Here, stir it real quick. Give it a taste. Look at that ribboning. Isn't that cool? Let me know what you think. You like it?
Mm-hmm. That's so well balanced.
Thank you. See, I do my research. When I actually like write stuff down and take time to build one of these recipes, I've got a shit ton of recipes in here. Back in 2020's quarantine, I wrote a bunch down of cool recipes I was doing because I had a lot of free time on my hands. And this was one of them. Do you want another one?
I will.
Go for it.
It's really good.
Thank you. This should be about done. Let's see. All right, Sean. All right, so watch this. I'm gonna put these in individually. A little bit of pasta water at a time. Not a whole lot, but it'll still have pasta water on it. And it will kind of just allow the noodles to be fully encapsulated into the cheese. Whoa. There we go. So starchy water, if you're ever trying to make like a cream sauce or like a butter sauce, you really need, oh, look at that. See how creamy it got right there? I didn't add any extra water, but it's become this just ultimate creamy texture. But starchy water really aids in that. It'll help things kind of bind and get real creamy as well. If you're ever making, putting pesto on your pasta, you got to add a splash of starchy pasta water. And if you make your pasta in shallower water, you'll have more starch per volume of water you use. Really aiding that process. Butter noodles, damn near requires it. Also, don't add Parmesan into your butter noodles. It'll just make them clumpy and gross. I've done that before. It doesn't work out. I think you can use a type. If you blitz it fine enough, you might be able to get away with it, but you got to be really careful because Parmesan doesn't want to melt as well as people think. It works out in here because of how much more bechamel we have compared to Parmesan. But if you just throw Parmesan into some noodles and try to melt it with pasta water, it usually doesn't work out very well. Okay, get in there. Look at that. Look at that. You can really see it bind onto it. That's why I wanted to do this. Oh my goodness. Now it's ooey gooey, amazing mac and cheese, cool color. That's what we want. Let's get the rest of these noodles in here. Don't want to waste any. I'm happy this is turning out so well. It's been a long time since I've made it, and I was really scared to fuck it up. I'm trying not to curse in my videos, but, people aren't going to watch this stuff, so I can say whatever I want. All right, that has gotten to the ooey gooey consistency. I'm going to turn all this heat off because it's going to go in the oven. Now, let's get all that out of there. Come on, be free. There we go. So let's give this a shot. Let's see how it tastes before our additives. Now, you can just stop here and you'd be just fine. Hot damn, that's good. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so now we're gonna add a layer of ground beef on top, then bacon bits, then, very hot, sorry. Then our panko breadcrumbs. So, go ahead and spoon a little bit of this on there. Whoop, it's a lot, it's too much of that. Let's not do too much oil there. There's enough fat going on. We don't need to add too much more of it. Just hoping that would mostly absorb into the meat. Okay, we've got our layer of ground beef. Now, let's just go ahead and do this. Check this out. We're gonna go ahead and just put our bacon bits into the breadcrumbs so it can more easily get better coverage here. Add that on top. Is this necessary? No. If I was making this just for myself, I'd probably just stop here. But this is meant to recreate a particular kind of mac and cheese from the restaurant Mad Mac. I'm gonna put a link in the description to their stuff. If you're in the Boise, Idaho area, highly recommend. They have a lot of food truck stuff going on as well. I don't need to cover this, actually. It just needs to go in the oven for 10 minutes, maybe? Maybe 10 minutes, just to let the ground beef kind of get warm again. So, set that in the oven. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So, we'll be back 10 minutes in 1, 2, 3. All right. It's been a little less than 10 minutes, but I got impatient. So this is our finished product. We've got bubbly, ooey gooey cheese. Let's get ourselves a scoop and we'll see how it tastes. Ooh, there we go. Ooh, look at how creamy it's gotten. It's very warm. I like to not have like a layer here. I like it to all be kind of mixed up. Ooh, so we get a lot of textural difference and nothing will taste unseasoned, right? So let's go ahead, load ourselves up. This is not about being all prude and skimping on stuff. This is meant to hurt you in a great way, in the best way possible. Leave that there. All right, let's get a good shot of this. Look at that. I like that a lot. All right, let's try it. Let's see how we're at. Let's see. I still got it with this. That's good. It's really good. You get the textural difference. You get the crunchiness from the panko. Ooh, lactate, very important if you are at all lactose intolerant, like me. The ground beef is decent. It's well seasoned, but it's not the main star. It does have a lot of bacon flavor because I cooked it in bacon fat. Do you want some? Cheese isn't good for you. Oh no. Say hello, Moon. Are you a good boy? Yes. Yes, you are. Oh, really good. Okay, it's kind of hot, so it's hard for me to taste right now. One note, I maybe would have added a little more cheese, a little more of the aged cheese. It needs a little bit more funk for my personal taste. Maybe like a goat cheese too would be good, just like a little bit more funkiness. But overall, it's not like too salty, good, well balanced. Kind of has the funk, it's got the sharpness, it's got this like peppery bite, got the meatiness. Overall, I think it's a pretty good success. That's it for today. I think I'll even post this recipe. I have it written down all right here. I'll put it in the comments or put it in the description. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm gonna get really sick eating this. All right, well, have a good one.